Now, again, this domain also from the cloud provider perspective. Simple. This domain is also from the cloud provider perspective. Okay. Now, when you say this domain is from the cloud provider perspective, what do you mean by that? So again, I told you right in domain three, the same way. Here, what basically happens that uh, when you basically go for the domain five, okay, here we talk about how what are the various security components or security mechanisms they have for operating a cloud infrastructure. Even it's contained customer perspective as well, but primarily a lot of things on the provider perspective. Like for example, what is a HSM device? What is a TPM? Very important to understand. HSM stands for hardware security module, which is basically a device for storing your key files in a hardware. What is the standard which we have to remember with HSM? Anyone remember this from yesterday session? The standard you have to remember with this HSM? FIPS, Federal Information Processing Standards 140-2. And understand team, HSM should always be a physical device. When you say HSM, it's a physical device. But if you basically go for TPM, it can be physical or virtual. When you basically go for a appliance in the cloud, there is a virtual TPM as well available. VTPM. It's a kind of a thing in your hard. It's a chip in your hardware, which is basically helping you to store your uh, you know uh, key files, website certificates, and also TPM can be virtual or physical. HSM can be only virtual. The second thing they will talk about is basically the various mechanisms we can have for security. Like the same way we have a physical hardware, we also have a virtual hardware, right? Like for example, when you go for cloud, do you know what you call that virtual network we are creating? If you basically go for on-premises, we are able to create a physical network, right? Like the same way, when you basically go to the cloud platform, you create something called as a virtual network. What do you call that virtual network you create in the cloud? It's basically have different names like VPC, or it's also called as VNet, etc. So that's a very important thing. Then for the firewall, you have a name called as security group or NSG in Azure. That's also so like that. Those understand those kind of concepts very important. Then when you say virtual hardware, there also you have a network, storage, CPU, and everything, right? But provided you virtually, right? And when you say you're a virtual using a virtual hardware, if you want to get the maximum functionality out of a virtual hardware, you should have a proper tools for installing that. Like for example, if you are a VMware guy, you have heard about the VMware tools. What is the thing? So if you want to get the VM you are running on the VMware system properly, you will install the VMware tool set, right? Like that, those kind of things. Okay. Okay. That's a very important thing. So the next one is the team. Again, the next one is guaranteed. Very, very important for you to understand. Again, understand the various mechanisms for accessing the cloud platform. What are the various mechanisms used by the cloud service provider and cloud service consumer? Okay. What are the various mechanisms used by the cloud service provider and cloud service consumer for accessing the cloud platform? That's a very, very important thing. Then various security mechanisms use network like VLANs. So team, tell me what is what is basically the difference between SSL and TLS? So every version of SSL is having some kind of vulnerabilities. So we go for a TLS, right? We basically go for a TLS, right? Then, which stands for transport. What is the latest version of TLS? Version 1.3, right? That's a very important thing to understand. Then you have to understand the TLS handshake process. That's a very interesting thing to learn. Also, will be questions on DNS. Like DNS check stands for DNS security extension. It's a security extension to protect your DNS servers. Okay, so even though it's not that much, but I would recommend that you can understand some various DNS attacks like DNS poisoning or those kind of things. It's good to know. That's all. Okay. And what is the primary goal of a VPN team? What is the primary goal of a VPN? The primary goal of VPN is secure data in transit. You are creating a secure tunnel in the network from on-premise to cloud or some between two different networks or systems so that you will be able to have a safe communication like you do it locally. Okay. That's basically what we call as a VPN. That's a very important thing to understand. We have different protocols like IPsec, etc., for doing that. Then you should understand the concept of what is in a security group, honeypots, and those kind of things. Just have to be aware of that. And one guaranteed exam point in the exam is that team, you should be aware of the concept of baselining. What is the reason why we are doing a baselining? So that baselining help us to have a proper understanding, and if there is any deviations happen, you will be able to have a uh, you know, understanding of the deviation which can possibly happen from a baseline. Okay, that's a very, very important point to understand. Then, okay, see, the next one is basically what we call as a concept of patch management. So always keep patch management a very important thing, because lack of proper patch management can lead to a lot of vulnerabilities. So basically, patch management is a very important activity. We should make sure that there is a proper approval process for patch management. We should do so. Once we have a proper approval process, we do for patch management. It helps us to make sure that we are able to get a proper security posture. That's a very important thing. Then what is the difference between going for a single server or a clustered host? If I basically go for a single server, I don't have a high availability or fault tolerance. But if I go for a clustered host, I can basically get a proper assurance regarding the availability of things. Because let's say, for example, we have 100 piece of server or 100 piece of servers in a cluster, and tomorrow if I'm deploying a VM on top of it, even though if there is any kind of underlying VMs fail, we are able to deploy it properly. That's a very important thing. Then we have something called as a performance and capacity monitoring. We want to make sure that we should get a proper performance every time. What is the minimum document for assuring the performance team? What is the minimum guarantee document for assuring the performance in cloud? SL is a minimum guarantee document for assuring performance in cloud. That's a very, very important thing to understand. Now, the next thing is that this is basically very important for the examination. You should be aware of these concepts. Like we have a change. What is a change management? Change management means I want to make sure I'm able to have a uh, proper change, which so that I will whatever activity I'm performing should be taken through a proper change management, and it will make sure that whatever is happening in my business, I have a proper track of activities and I can reduce the impact. That's the reason we have a change management. Then I want to have a proper business continuity. The process for doing the business continuity is called as a business continuity management. Then we have a ISMS. Then we have a service management. Incident. What is a primary goal of incident management? The primary goal of incident management is to restore the operation as soon as possible and to reduce the impact. That's what we call as a incident management. Then we have a problem management, where we want to make sure that we are able to identify the root cause of a problem and fix it. We want to identify the root cause of an issue and fix. That's what we call as a problem management. And when I am releasing a new version of my application, I want to make sure that the new version is properly tested and released in a proper perspective without affecting my production. That's a release management and deployment management. Then we have a configuration management, to make sure that we are able to have a proper track of configuration. So I should be aware of what is happening in my business. I want to have a proper track of all the actions happening in my business. That's called as a availability management. Then we have a capacity management, where we talk about the capacity. That means what? Capacity means that we are where we talk about the the capacity which we need for running our business in a proper way. So I would recommend that we should basically dig deeper on this in the cloud perspective. This is basically very, very important for the examination perspective. I'm just giving a quick overview only here. Okay. The next one is the team. We have a concept of forensics. In fact, forensics is a very important topic to understand. What is the primary goal of forensic team? So primary goal of forensics is to basically identify the evidence. So it's a process where science meets law. And when you're talking about forensics, we have a process called as a digital forensics, or computer forensics, where we want to collect and identify the evidences. So you should have to be aware of the concept of a forensics, just not the entire forensic process, but how forensics can be done in cloud. Because if you go to cloud, you have a lot of problems like lack of visibility, lack of control, and all. So basically, what happens, as you have a lack of visibility and lack of control, etc., forensic can be challenging. And basically, if you want to have proper forensics, you should make sure that you contact your vendor accordingly. You contact your vendor and basically have a proper contractual agreement accordingly, right? Like that. Okay. Now, team, the next one is that basically we have a community relevant party. So basically now, how to ensure that we have a proper community with relevant parties like vendors. Vendors means the one who provide the services to the cloud service provider, the customers. The partners means the one who basically support the cloud journey. Regulators basically with the authorities, which basically do the auditing and assessment of the cloud platform. Like that, how they ensure that they are properly aligned. That's very important thing. Then the next is basically we have a concept of SOC. Team, what is the primary goal of a security operation center? Always keep in mind that SOC is a centralized process in your business for monitoring, detecting, analyzing, and responding to the various threats in your organization, including they will do threat hunting, security posture management, security monitoring, alerting, fixing, a lot of defending, a lot of things they do, right? So basically, SOC is a very just understand the concept. And what is a SIM tool? It's a very important thing to know what is the purpose of a SIM tool. Like SIM tool is something which will help us to analyze the log files, right, and give you alerts. Then you should know about the difference between VA and PT. Vulnerability assessment is the process of identifying known vulnerabilities, and penetration testing is the process of trying to see if the vulnerabilities can be exploited. That's a very important thing to understand. So honeypot or honeynet is basically a network or a system which will fake the real system or network. So what will happen as we have a fake system or network there? So it will basically help us to make sure that when the attacker is trying to attack, he will that is a fake network. So basically, it will look like real. So the attacker, when they try to compromise, they will fall into this trap. But the
Okay.
primary goal of the honeypot or honeynet is not just trapping the attacker, but more than trapping the attacker, the primary goal of a honeypot or honeynet is to you know uh, to identify, or we can say to identify the latest techniques used by the attackers to compromise like that.